Hi, I'm Rick Dior, and today we're going to talk about the traditional grip. I've gotten lots of emails and comments asking me about this, so we'll go into this in more depth today than I have in some of my other videos. So when I was growing up, everybody played traditional grip. When you took lessons, you were taught that and not the match grip, although I used match grip constantly. And in a lot of ways, I wish I had started with match grip. But the traditional grip is very, very useful for many things. Obviously for brushes. Also, I use it for a lot of orchestral playing when I need extra finesse and delicacy. And if you grow up playing traditional grip, your hand kind of molds into that. So it becomes natural and very comfortable. And then in a way, match grip becomes a little more difficult. In other words, if you switch from traditional to matched, matched never feels quite right. And again, I play a lot of match and I practice a lot of match grip. But my body always sort of conforms to that traditional grip because I practiced so much when I was younger and also because I was growing as I was using this grip. So I mostly use traditional grip. Now for drum set, playing jazz, playing funk, a lot of Latin stuff, I really love the traditional grip because it allows me, with my weaker hand, my left hand, to ghost more. So that's something you might want to consider. You don't have to do it. I teach all of my students both ways. Most all of them play matched, and then we add the traditional grip. And I teach some drum corps students as well, and they mostly all play traditional grip. Not always the right way, so we have to fix that. Um, but that is what it is. So we're going to talk about this grip today, and I got two cameras set up. One on my right so you can see my left hand better. I know a lot of you have asked for that, so we're going to do it. Okay, so we're going to start out with the basics, and I covered a lot of this in my How to Play Relaxed video. So some of you might know this already, but we'll go over it once again. First of all, the grip is about a third of the way up the stick. So if you take your hand like this and you put the stick in like that, and then you close it. So if you can see that, that's where we are. Everybody's hand is a little different. So your thumb might protrude up more. The main thing is that you're not locked into a kind of a fist-like grip like that with the thumb over. The thumb needs to be mobile, as do all of your fingers. This grip is a lot more complicated than the match grip. There's a lot of moving parts. And if those parts aren't moving right, you're never going to be able to play even rolls and rudiments and ghost right and evenly and all that stuff. Okay, so it's very, very important that you play very relaxed and loose and let that stick bounce. So the first thing I would suggest practicing is just a full forearm stroke with the fingers out like that and the thumb basically holding the stick, not controlling it, but holding the stick. So we're going to do that. And what that does, it gets your forearm moving in the correct manner. Now, some of you have asked about the tilt of my drum. It really varies with how your body is, how long your arms are, obviously how tall you are, the height of your drum. For traditional grip, I like my height a little bit of the drum a little higher. So I'm not going down that far. And I have a slight, very slight tilt, maybe 5 or 6 degrees to the right. You don't need to do any kind of crazy tilt like that you see some of these older videos. You see some of the drums. That kind of defeats the purpose of anything because then you can't play correct rim shots and all that. So I would suggest that you definitely just tilt it a little bit. And you can even, I've seen guys play flat and gals play flat, and it's perfectly fine. But you do want to tilt just a little, kind of following the direction of the tilt of your hand. Now the left hand should be like this. So in other words, like an L. Shouldn't be in back of your body, shouldn't be in front. Very relaxed. So if you have any doubts, just drop your hands and then pick up your hand, your left hand, and try to get it perpendicular to the drum. So hopefully you can see that. So back to this. So we're doing that, trying to go straight up and down. Try to play in the same area of the drum, which would be the center. Okay? For now. Good. Now the next step is to use your thumb to move the stick. So this. Now that's a little more difficult. And you see I'm keeping my fingers straight. That's important because you want your thumb doing all of the work. Don't try to go fast. The trick is control and dynamic control too. You're going to need that. And the last step is fingers over. This is more difficult. Again, it needs to be controlled. Don't try to do anything too fast. But both my fingers are moving. Some of you with longer fingers will find that your fingers move individually. That's okay too, as long as that stick is moving straight. As you can see, it is. Now that whole motion, that whole hand position might be uncomfortable for some of you. And when you start, it might feel like that, and it's going to take some time. Just be patient. And if you have trouble, do this. Just let that stick bounce, see? So just practice dropping the stick like that so you know it's bouncing. And remember, our hand position or stick position is about 1/3 of the way, or maybe a little less up the stick, all right? That depends on the weight of the stick. We'll talk about that real quick right now. I use several different kinds of sticks to practice. I tend to use a heavier stick when I'm warming up. So these are some sticks that I made. They're zebra wood, actually the heartwood of zebra wood, which is heavier. And I like this kind of barrel tip. It gives me a lot of definition. And they have a lot of front weight, okay? Generally, though, I'll use a lighter stick for performing. These are William Rhythmic sticks. They're older. These are probably 30 years old. I bought many pairs of these. I think these are the best sticks ever made. Unfortunately, William Rhythmic has passed. I think that his son, Andy, has taken over the company. And they're making these sticks, but they're not out of persimmon anymore. They're out of hickory, which in my opinion isn't as good. Persimmon's a great wood for drumsticks. So these are much lighter. I would say they're about maybe 72 grams, whereas these other sticks are closer to 80 grams, which is a pretty heavy stick. Now, the good thing about these South American hardwoods and African hardwoods is that they're very dense. So the stick doesn't need to be thick to be heavy, like a drum corps stick, which is very thick. And I would not suggest practicing that with that, okay? Other sticks I use, this is a leopard, this is tiger wood here. That's kind of in the middle. And I use a very heavy stick called lace wood or leopard wood, if you can see that. And these are sticks that I make, but they also have barrel tips. And these are very heavy. They're like 85 grams. And I'll use these to play very slow and to warm up with once again. So I find that when I warm up with a heavier stick, it just gets the blood flowing. At my age, you know, I'm getting a little older, so it helps me get my muscles moving. And I don't ever try to play super fast when I start. I'll just play, you know, some paradiddles, maybe some rolls, singles. So just things to get my hands moving. And I would definitely suggest you do that from the beginning of your career to the end. So back to the grip here. So we've gone over the 3 different positions, which is, I call that karate chop, by the way. Then thumb only, and then fingers over. Now the trick to this is getting it to work when you put it in position. So we're not going to play like this all the time, obviously. We're going to play like this, all right? So when you do this, actually I'm going to switch back to these heavier sticks for a minute. Gives you a little deeper sound. So when you do this, you're going to watch that left hand carefully and make sure everything's moving. Now, here's how I think of the left hand grip. So the thumb creates a clinch. In other words, that kind of motion. As we practiced when we did this, okay? We did that to build up that tendon, that muscle there. So the clinch works like that. If you can see that in my right-hand camera here, I'll do it slow. So what I'm doing there is I'm releasing the stick and I'm grabbing it with my thumb, and these 2 fingers here, these first 2 fingers, they look like they're doing something, but all they're doing is closing in right now, okay? Now these bottom fingers, I call these the regulators, these bottom two fingers, these two right here, okay? So they work together to stop the stick. That's extremely important. So you see how they create a barrier so the stick can't go any further. Now, when I do two strokes, as you'll see there, that's a clinch, but now you'll see how the bottom two fingers come off the stick. Now the goal here is to get both of these notes the same volume. So I am bouncing, but as well, I'm using my thumb and those bottom fingers you'll see there, they're kind of moving in a little bit of a circle. Kind of a circular motion, perpetual motion, but counterclockwise, slightly. You see that? Hopefully. I'll do it a bunch. You might want to slow it down on your video player or your YouTube channel there. Okay, if I do 3 strokes. Now, I'm going to show you a couple exercises actually while I'm doing this. The 3-stroke exercise is great for developing this. So what I'm doing is I'm doing 2 bounces and then a clinch. And on that clinch, I'm using those bottom fingers and the thumb together to basically compress that stick in a relaxed manner. So it's not a violent action. That's the 2 strokes. Here's 3. Slow. So you see how I'm letting that stick down. And there is some wrist involved. Obviously no shoulder whatsoever. The shoulder remains relaxed. If you're doing this, then you're doing it wrong. You do not want to do that. Okay? And as I talked about in my how to play relaxed video, you know, instinct tells us to pick up a stick or whatever and do that. You know, that's, you know, we're basically, well, we were evolved as hunters. Okay, so we want to use something to hit something else. And to use the biggest muscle in our arm, which is our shoulder, we want to use that. You have to fight against the tendency to do that. When you're playing, you should be looking in a mirror and you should not see any part of your upper body moving or jumping around. Okay, so upper body here, your shoulders. So that's very important. It should all come from your wrists, a little bit of forearm, and definitely lots of fingers. Okay? So this whole motion with the 3 strokes, as I go faster, you see that it's very relaxed. Hopefully it looks that way. Again, this is a heavy stick. If I do it with a lighter stick, it's much easier now because I'm warmed up. It's early in the morning here. Okay? So I'll keep these for a minute. So the main thing is to stay relaxed at all times. Now, let's talk about the bounce for a minute because that's something you need to work on in conjunction with everything else. So when we say bounce, we mean this. Let that stick drop. When you first start playing, you don't really have any idea of, you know, how many bounces or how many bounces you can get. So what I do with students who don't have a lot of traditional technique and we're starting with it is I just have them do this. Just kind of drop the stick. I'm doing a little whip motion there to create velocity, but I'm not really doing any kind of wrist action. That stick is bouncing. Now, the trick is to follow it with my fingers. So you see how my fingers are following it? Now at this point, the bottom 2 are doing nothing. They're together, but they're down below the stick. And when I stop it, they move up. See? So that's a really good thing to practice, okay? So that's 4 strokes, and again, bounced, but stopped and regulated. So when we try to do a double stroke row, which is pretty much the first thing that I will teach traditional students how to do, we'll just start like this, and we'll use those bottom fingers as regulators, okay? Now you see how the stick is moving with my thumb. The thumb is not doing anything, okay? The thumb is just creating a capsule for that movement. I hope you understand that. So in other words, the thumb and these 2 fingers will regulate the motion of that stick. And you've heard this word a lot, regulate. So I'm limiting the motion of the stick with all my fingers, but they're each doing something different. Where the thumb and these fingers in this case are regulating how far that stick bounces. All right, the bottom two fingers are regulating the stoppage of that stick. You see how that's working? So you saw some singles there, single fours. And you see how that works? Those are sevens. I'll try to use this camera, my right-hand camera, for close-ups when I do the final mix of this video, but so you can see it. But the bottom fingers are regulating the movement of that stick. Okay, so hopefully that is helping you understand how all these fingers works. So let's jump in here and do some exercises that will explain to you with different rudiments how we can apply these hand motions. So let's start with paradiddles. It's a perfect rudiment, combination of singles and doubles. So single paradiddles with a slight accent on the first beat. Now you see that slight throwing motion with both hands. It's not a shoulder motion. In other words, I'm not moving my shoulder at all, just wrists and fingers. As I get a little faster, you see that motion compresses. Then I slow back down, and that motion opens up. So the faster I play, the more that left-hand motion compresses. But once again, you see how I'm throwing that stick. So those are combinations of paradiddles and some other stickings in there too. Another great thing to practice are flam rudiments. So if we have like a flam tap. Now this is a bounced rudiment. In other words, basically it's a double stroke roll superimposed on each other with each hand. So right, right, left. So right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left, but you're overlaying those. And you see how that left hand is moving now, and how those fingers underneath are pushing the stick up. Okay, another one to practice are flam accents, which are these. Get some height on those flams, but again, you see how the left hand is working there. And then you can do flam, combinations. Stuff like that, okay? So any kind of flam rudiment is terrific. Now, the last thing that I would suggest practicing are triplets, but you want to do them with some sort of double. So in other words, triplets are triplet, 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 triplet. But in this case, we want to do okay, so those are combinations of right, right, left, right, right, left, or left, left, right, left, left, right, or right, left, left, right, left, left, or left, right, right, left, right, right. Now, you can practice this with certain books or rhythms, and I'm going to do a whole nother video on this. I'll post it soon, but what that is taking rhythms. In this case, I'm using them from a few of my books. This is the Three Camps book. I know a lot of you have it. This is the drum set book. These rhythms are in here. Okay, so in other words, hopefully you can see this. This is page 48 in the Three Camps book. I believe it's page 7 in the drum set book, something similar. And what that is are groups of rhythms. And I'm interpreting these with triplets. So here's the rhythm by itself. So 1 and 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and 3 and 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4. So that's the first line. So what I do is I take triplets and I make all of the rhythms the accents. So like this. So faster. So all that's done with combinations of again, what I said before, right, right, left, 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 right, left, right, 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 left, left, okay? And that is very important. Now you might say, why is that important? It's important because when you play jazz or funk or anything, a lot of times that left hand is doing some sort of bounce, and that has to be even. Otherwise you sound bad. So when you're playing jazz, that left hand needs to be even with the triplets. So you have to learn how to drop that. You can't do that by doing this. Just with the wrist. You have to drop it. So again, I'm going to post a video how to interpret any kind of rhythm, from syncopation, the book syncopation, to any kind of rhythm you might find in any book, into exercises to work on with your hands. The main thing is that you are doing this grip correctly and you're doing all the things that we talked about. So I'll recap that real quick. The first step is to get that stick a third of the way up, okay? And start with a heavier stick if you want for more balance or more bounce, all right? And then you practice this, the karate chop. It's not really a karate chop, but... And for a long time, and nice and relaxed, exercise that forearm and that wrist. See how that wrist is moving? Not tense, not with your shoulder, okay? And then the next step is just a thumb, okay? And again, not fast. I'm not going fast on purpose, all right? So you won't. See how the fingers are straight out? It's all about control. And finally, the hard one, over top. That's where you're getting those top fingers to move, all right? And that again is to balance your bounce, as you see there in the clinch. So I hope this helps, and I'll see you next time. Thanks so much.